Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing something that's a bit different than the videos I've shared before, and that is the difference between two openings. Now, these openings that I'm going to be sharing today are the Accelerated Dragon and the Mainline Dragon. So, the Mainline Dragon is what most of you should probably know, and that arises after e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes, knight takes, knight f6, knight c3, g6. Now, I'm showing this in black's perspective because it's usually black who plays this line in the dragon, and this is the dragon main line. And after g6, white usually plays bishop e3, bishop g7, f3, castles, queen d2, knight c6, bishop c4, or long castles. They're both lines. I'll show both of them later. But just saying, after bishop c4, bishop d7, long castles, rook c8, bishop b3, knight e5, we get to a very complicated position, and this is still just theory, and there's more openings starting to go. However, after this move, there are a lot of differences compared to this in the Accelerated Dragon. So a lot of you may know how the Accelerated Dragon works. Is that after c5, knight f3, here black can transpose into the Accelerated Dragon in two ways, but personally I think g6 is the better way to transpose if you want to play the Accelerated Dragon. The move g6 is called the Hyper Accelerated Dragon, which sounds like a very strange name, and I guess it is, but after d4, c takes, knight takes, and after knight c6, we transpose back into the line Accelerated Dragon. And the difference is, here, white still plays the same move, knight c3, and after bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, bishop c4, castles, f3, d6, queen d2, bishop d7, long castles, rook c8, bishop e3, and knight e5. And at this moment, you might be saying, hey, wait a minute, isn't this position and this position the exact same? And these positions, as you will see later, are coming from different variations. So just watch and look. As you can see, if you remember clearly enough, this comes from the mainline dragon. And then, if you come here, the Accelerated Dragon line, look what position arises. So I'm just scrolling through these lines, and you see that you arrive at the exact same position. So at this moment, you might be wondering to yourself, what's the main difference? And there is one main advantage of the Accelerated Dragon and one main disadvantage of the Accelerated Dragon. So let's go through the advantage first. And the main advantage is that after the Accelerated Dragon, knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, in this position, what black has not pushed this d-pawn. And this matters a lot because after knight f6, some inexperienced players here as white, they would play the move f3, thinking that it's the exact same dragon line. And this is how you would play. See, right now we're on the 6th move, but in the mainline dragon, the 7th move white plays is move f3. And if you play f3 and black plays something like d6, then after queen d2, castles, bishop c4, bishop d7, we do transpose back into the same line. So, let's drop back for a little. However, f3 can be met by a very, very strong move. And after this move, white needs to be like one step more careful. So here, instead of playing d6, black can castle first. And here, if white plays the same move, queen d2, here black can take advantage that his pawn hasn't pushed to d6, and instead in this position play the move d5 in one move. In this position, black has the advantage because he's saved an extra tempo. This pawn on d5 break works, and you'll see in the following lines how strong it is. So in this position, white's best move is actually to long castle. And after white long castle in this position, black can play the move d takes c4, and after knight takes c6, queen takes d2, rook takes d2, b takes c6, knight takes c4, knight takes c4, f takes c4, and after this position, after black plays move bishop e6. Now the position is about equal, and well, both sides have a same type of pawn structure, with black having 4 pawns and 2 isolated pawns, while white has an isolated center pawn and 3 pawns here and 2 pawns here. So overall, this position would be about equal. However, after long castles, if black wants to play for more, he can play the move knight takes d4. And after bishop takes d4, d takes e4, f takes e4. In this position, black can play the move queen a5. And in this position, we have a middle game type position, but here black should be slightly better due to his lead in development. And bishop's coming to g4 or e6, the rook's coming to c8 and d8, and black has a very comfortable position here. So after long castles, finally, after knight takes d4, now in the normal one of the lines in the main line, which I will show you sometime, is that after knight takes d4, sometimes white wants to play the move e5. However, in this position, after knight f5, e takes f6, e takes f6, knight takes d5, knight takes e3, queen takes e3. In this case, we still play the exact same moves. Like, these are part of one other gigantic variation, which I will cover very soon. And the main reason why this works again for black is because the king, which normally should be on b1 already in this variation, is still on c1. And this gives black the advantage because, for example, if white makes some discovery, say knight f4, and this position, black plays the move bishop d7, so shielding the queen. And after something like bishop b5 to try to exploit the pin, you can play the move queen e8, forcing the queen trade. After queen takes, rook takes. Now you see the main difference. If the king was on b1 in this position, bishop h6 would not be a threat. This wouldn't be a pin. But because this is a pin, white needs to spend extra tempo moving his knight. In this position, black's rook can reach the second rank. And if you know anything about rook endgames, they know how strong the rook is on the second rank. And in this position, it's about equal again, and white still needs to play extremely precisely, as the bishop is usually stronger than the knight in these types of positions, and this pawn is going to move sooner or later. So we can come back to some dragon theory now, and why the accelerated dragon prevents this. So we don't need to look at this bishop c4 line, because this line can, as we saw already, can arise from both lines. What I want to show you guys today is the main line, which comes from long castles. Now, if you watch my game, in my YouTube playlist against Energetic K on chess.com from 1 year ago, then you know what my opponent played and how I screwed up against him. But in this case, after long castles, you should always play the move d5 in the dragon. And after d5, there are many moves that white can try, but the majority of them are also very, very good. So there's move king b1, which is probably the most popular move other than e takes d5, which is the main line. After e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes c6, b takes c6, knight takes d5 can be played. However, bishop d4 is the best move. And after black plays e5, bishop c5, bishop e6, it looks like the exchanges hang, but white shouldn't take it. After knight e4, rook e8, and here after h4, f5. In this position, it's just a very crazy position, but overall it's quite balanced and it's very complicated. However, against e takes d5 over here, instead, if we just retreat back a few moves, after d5, here, if white plays the move king b1, then in this position, black should play the move knight d4. And here is the line that I said, where white should play the move e5 in this position. After knight f5, e takes, knight takes, queen takes. We saw all of this, but instead, in this line, the king's on b1 today. And after bishop e6, the knight can't move because the rooks hang, but after move bishop c4, f5, you can see that with the king on c1 instead of the king on b1, this diagonal would have been weaker, and bishop h6 would have come as a threat. For example, if we just retreat back a little, so let's go back into the accelerated dragon line where d5 is played, and we dive into the knight d4 line after e5, knight f5, e takes. And in this position, after knight takes, queen takes. After bishop e6, let's say white played move bishop c4. In this position, you should play move f5. After f5, white can play a very common move in this position, which is to play rook he1. And then in this position, you can immediately exploit the fact that the king's on c1 with this amazingly good move, queen h4. And the main reason why this works is, firstly, this move attacks the bishop over here. However, the secondary threat is that it threatens the move bishop h6, which pins the queen to the king. If the king was on b1, none of this can happen. This means that white is forced to play the move f4. And after bishop takes, now white with his pawn on f4 is going to have a really hard time to get these kingside pawns moving. Now, queen h4 wasn't the best move, but it just shows one weakness that we can exploit with the king on c1. So, retreating back, so the dragon main line arises after king b1, knight d4, e5, knight takes, e takes, knight takes, queen takes, bishop e6, and bishop c4. Now, in this line, as we just saw, white is fine, it's about equal, but in this line, where the king is still on c1, so back here, the king's still on c1, in this position, black is slightly better. Okay, so that's what the accelerated dragon does. So if your opponent is not careful and plays queen d2 in this position, you can play d5 in one move. So what does this line prevent? Well, this line prevents that white is going to long castle on the 8th move. Because if you want to try to play this type of position where your pawn is not advanced yet, in this position, white can only opt for the bishop c4 line, otherwise known as the Yugoslav attack or the main line. And, well, this is not really the main line. The old line, which is mostly played and has higher scores for white, is long castles. And the move bishop c4, after this, d5 is completely covered, so in this position you can just castle, and after f3 you can just play d6. And then we transpose back into the dragon. So, what is good about the dragon? As I said before, the accelerated dragon had a disadvantage and an advantage. So what is the disadvantage of the dragon when the accelerated dragon is played? We just saw is the long castles variation. After here, 9 long castles, the pawn moves from d6 and then d5, and that wastes the tempo from black. So what's the disadvantage of the accelerated dragon? It's that after knight f3, all the way back here, after g6, d4, c takes, knight c6. In this position, knight c3 does not have to be played. In fact, white has a different setup. It's called the Maroczy bind. I might have mentioned this in one of my previous videos. And that arises after white plays the move c4. After white playing c4, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3. In this position, black has two main lines. He can either play castles or knight g4. But let's just say castles is played. And after move bishop e2, d6, f3, bishop d7, and castles. And as you can see, with these two pawns here, it feels like that white is pressing more in the center. And if you are an experienced Maroczy bind player, then playing the accelerated dragon is absolutely no problem. Like me, for example, I can play the dragon and the accelerated dragon, though I do tend to play the dragon more often. But the accelerated dragon is still a very good go-to line. And also, after castles in this position, there are a few moves that you can play. You can play knight d4, but I won't be going into any of this theory. I'll just say that with the pawns on c4 and e4, this becomes a suddenly completely different line, and this is why the accelerated dragon is sometimes rated worse than the dragon, because if you pay attention to the moves in the dragon, after knight f6, if white doesn't play knight c3, what does he play? He can play the move f3, but after f3, if your opponent knows what he's doing and he plays g6, we can still transpose back into the accelerated dragon. And against f3, which is one of my pet lines, I won't be sharing anything today, but f3 is best for equality if your opponent knows what it's doing, but I'm keeping this top secret for now. And for now, we're just going to shift back to knight f3, and after g6, d4, takes, knight c6. Notice that the e4 pawn is not under threat by a knight on f6. This means that the move c4 can be played. So, to summarize what you have just learned, the dragon and accelerated dragon have two completely different ideologies, but they both arrange to a very similar position. The accelerated dragon's weakness is that it allows the Maroczy bind to be played, which arises with two pawns on e4 and c4. And the weakness of the dragon is that it allows white to play the main line. So after d6, d4, c takes, knight f6, knight c3, g6, it allows white to play the main line of the dragon. Well, it's not the main line, it's the old line of the dragon. After queen d2, castles, and here white long castles. And long castles does ruin a lot of black's preparation, and that's what I've been sharing here to you today. So it's your choice if you want to still play the mainline dragon and face the old line for white again, or you can maybe choose to alternate to the accelerated dragon. A lot of people don't know the difference of both of them and why they're both played, but I have just showed you what they're good against and what they're not. So I hope that you learned something from this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.